Welcome back to On the Move with Victor Shi. This is Victor Shi. It is Friday, May 19th, and as all of us know, our media forces us into political silos so that those who watch MSNBC will, for the most part, never watch Fox, and those who watch Fox will never watch MSNBC. But the difference is that, and as we've seen through the Dominion discovery process, only one network not only knows what it's saying is false, but continues to say those lies to their viewers for ratings and money. And that network is, of course, Fox. And today is an episode I've wanted to do for a long time, and that is to talk about how Fox is able to manipulate their audience. What about their content creates outrage and fear of the other side? And how do we push back against Fox? And I'm lucky to be joined by Juliet Jeske, who runs the amazing Twitter account Decoding Fox News, which watches Fox so we don't have to and exposes all of their misinformation. Juliet, it is so great to see you today. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Great to be here.
So I have so many questions, but first I want to know how you got into the space of watching Fox. Were you a regular Fox watcher? How did you get into this whole kind of scenario where you're kind of now decoding Fox News?
I actually have my cat is climbing up the back of my chair. Just wanted to, if you see a little black animal, come over me. Sorry. I basically had a background covering the Proud Boys, and that was before I actually was a journalist. I was sort of an amateur researcher, and I started working with journalists. That's when I went to J school. So I had this crazy background with a bunch of hundreds of hours of Gavin McInnes from the Gavin McInnes show, where he put the Proud Boys together. And then when I was in J school, I designed a project, a media project that was basically a version of Decoding Fox News, where I analyzed right-wing media and compared it to kind of nonpartisan media. And someone at school offered me a grant. So but they said you have to follow Fox.
Which is a huge undertaking. And I have to admit, I mean, the last time I watched Fox was probably before I started college. I mean, maybe 2019, 2020. And even then, I remember I couldn't watch it because it was so overwhelmingly for Trump and different from MSNBC and even CNN for that matter. And I'm wondering first, I mean, like, how do you do it and how do you have it within you to watch everything that Fox does and says?
I'm looking for cracks. I'm looking for anything I can exploit and make them look bad or point out to my viewers and my listeners, because I also have a podcast of how they're manipulating people and how they're twisting facts and how they're twisting a story.
Mm-hmm. And so you understand that world and Fox better than most people watching this and myself do. But I want to start off by kind of talking about what appears to me to be three very distinct worlds at Fox. Their morning program, their dayside and early afternoon programs, and their afternoon and late night programs. Do you think those kind of three buckets, the morning, the kind of dayside / early afternoon, and then their afternoon and late night programs are good ways to categorize the different worlds in Fox?
I specifically target Fox and Friends, The Five, and then primetime shows. So I don't really know early morning shows, the mid-afternoon shows that well. I was specifically asked to go after the most popular shows. So it's definitely the same exact message over and over. You'll sometimes see variation among the primetime shows. Specifically, if something really big happens, sometimes I'll catch all of primetime. So I'll go after every single show when there's a really big story that happens. But you'll see the exact same messaging down to exact phrasing sometimes on Fox and Friends, The Five, and then a primetime show, the exact same phrasing. So it's like messaging. It's a very basically tool of propaganda to just get almost like marketing, just get that message out.
Right. I mean, they say it enough times and then people will believe it. But I'm wondering, I mean, can you give us an example? Because when I watch Fox, I mean, it feels like a completely different reality from what's happening on MSNBC. And I'm wondering kind of what stories are being told on Fox? What are those kind of same messages or words that you hear? Is there kind of a pattern or theme you can give us a sense of?
Well, this week, the story that they think is the biggest story ever, and they've literally said bigger than Watergate, is the Durham report.
Oh, gosh.
Nobody else thinks it's a big story because it's basically an editorial that special prosecutor says, this is my opinion about everything. He couldn't back anything up. He couldn't get any decent prosecutions. He didn't really find anything that he was set out to find. And then you compare it to the Mueller report that had 37 indictments, 34 to individuals, 3 to companies. And you go, wow, that's a huge difference. But they act right. The message they're saying right now is that the Durham report somehow negated the Mueller report, and everyone in the Mueller report, including people who pleaded guilty are now exonerated, and that Trump
Mhm.
never had any collusion, and there was no Russia didn't do anything to mess with our election. I mean, it's just they're just making up reality. And if you watch any other
Yeah.
news, they're not saying that at
Right.
all. They're talking about the debt ceiling. They're talking about things that are actually happening. But Fox is in its own little universe.
And is the way that Fox gets to their audience, do they use more of a tactic of focusing on one thing like the Durham report or kind of one thing like attacking Hunter Biden? Or do they try to kind of flood the channel? Because I imagine both techniques are as effective for reaching an audience, but what is your observation with how Fox is able to kind of focus on something and then control their audience?
There's always fear and paranoia, and kind of that hyped up of like everything's life and death, everything's like the sky is falling. That is
Mm.
every single day, regardless of what they're covering. And I don't want to use profanity, but they say flood the zone with
Yeah.
SI, that fun word. So you say flood the zone with garbage. I'll say that. So if you say flood the zone with garbage, that's what they do every single day. And Hunter Biden is kind of an evergreen topic. So when
Yeah.
they get bored, or they don't have anything else to talk about, or they want to distract, they whip out Hunter Biden. And the funny thing about Hunter Biden is every day they're like, we're going to get him. Tomorrow the indictment's coming. And of course, it never happens.
Right.
It's like this. It's like this thing they hold out to their viewers and then pull it away and hold out. And it's like I don't. Yeah, that's like definitely an evergreen topic over there at Fox.
Yeah. You mentioned viewers, and I'm curious if you have any kind of insight into who the Fox audience is, especially those who watch at night. Because I mean, I was talking to one of my friends who, his grandparents watches. It's like an avid Fox watcher, and it gets to the point where he's talking to the TV, and I'm wondering, I mean, who are the people who watch Fox? Where do they kind of fall, and kind of what demographic are they?
Well, the audience for cable news in general skews much older,
Yeah. Yeah.
in their 60s and up. Not that that's super old or anything, but it's definitely not millennial. It's not Gen Z.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's definitely an older crowd. Fox viewers tend to keep on the channel on for hours. This is what
Mm.
research has shown. They don't watch one show. Most news consumers will watch one show on MSNBC or NBC or CBS or ABC, whatever.
Yeah.
They'll watch one show and then they move on to other types of programming. Whereas Fox viewers will keep it on all day. They will watch anything that channel puts on. And they also tend to feel invested. It's
Mhm.
very they use terms like family when they talk to their viewers. Your family, we're family here, and they're very chummy.
Yeah.
And it's I say cultish. I've said cultish before and
Yeah.
gotten a lot of grief for it, but I'm going to go ahead and say cultish. Mostly white, mostly older, and people that are truly dedicated to the network.
Hmm. I was also going to say that sounds like a cult to me. I just finished reading this one book called Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism, and it's pretty amazing. And as you were saying that sounds very much like a cult. And I want to ask you one other element that I'm very curious about Fox is kind of what are the type of guests who regularly appear on Fox? Because I mean, it seems like recently, I don't know if this is recently or if this has kind of been more of a historical trend with Fox, but a lot of Republican elected officials seem to make it sort of their North Star to go on Fox. I mean, you think of people like Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene who do so much to just go on Fox News and get that kind of 15-minute segment. Do you kind of find that to be true? If not, kind of what are the type of people who go on Fox on a regular basis?
I've openly joked that I wonder how some of these Republican lawmakers get anything done because they're on Fox all day long, like Jim Jordan and
Yeah.
James Comer, and just they're one right after the other. Lindsey Graham is on there constantly. Although
Mhm,
Lindsey Graham,
mhm.
some of them don't like Lindsey.
Oh,
Tucker Carlson, although Tucker Carlson is no longer with the network, he
right.
did not like Lindsey Graham. But you and Matt Gaetz, of course, you'll see the same people over and over. The funniest thing was uh, after the midterms, they were complaining about and before the midterms, they kept complaining about how the most extreme voices in the Republican Party were kind of ruining things, and yet for the party, taking
Mhm.
things off the scale and causing it, moderate voters not to vote Republican. Yet they had on Boebert and Gates
Oh
and a
gosh.
bunch
Yeah.
of Freedom Caucus people on Fox, and they're
Right.
saying this, and they're like, "Let's talk to, Lauren Boebert for 10." Like Hannity did that, and he talked to her for 10 minutes. It's like,
Wow.
how can you? And so there's that, and then they also have their regular contributors
Mhm.
that are paid. So you'll see the same people over and over and over and over and over, like Victor Davis Hanson, Joe Concha, Clay Travis, these people
Mhm,
that just
mhm.
that's their job is to go on Fox. Kellyanne Conway is a frequent
Yeah.
guest. So yeah.
Have we I mean, after the 2020 election, I remember they fired, a couple of their kind of more traditionally conservative people who had the guts to call out Fox, and I know a couple of, people who used to be at Fox have now left Fox to go to outlets like The Dispatch, more kind of traditionally conservative outlets. Are there any more of those people at Fox or even people on the left that they have on?
Not really. No, I
Mm.
would say Brett Baer is kind of barely holding on. I
Yeah,
wouldn't put him
yeah.
on the left. He's just trying to be more legitimate
Mhm.
news. But even his show, I just kind of I don't really watch it on a regular basis. But when I've seen
Yeah.
Brett Baer's show, it just feels thin. It's very fast. The stories go by at a clip. They don't really dig in deeply into anything.
Mhm.
I would say, yeah, the network has no, they're still very, very right wing and very,
Wow.
very biased and openly propagandist. I mean, there's no nice way of putting that. But
Yeah. I mean, will Fox ever change? I mean, you have people saying, or I guess before the Dominion lawsuit, saying maybe these lawsuits might make an impact. You now see them changing their lineup. It seems like Laura Ingraham is out of the nighttime lineup. Is this any? Does this give you any hope that they're changing, or not really?
I will see the Laura Ingraham unless something happened in the past few hours. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe it did this morning. As of yesterday, she still very much has a job. That was sort of a
Okay.
story that
Sure.
was pushed on the Drudge Report, and it got picked up at Mediate, and there was no other verification of that. So
Mm,
again, I
mhm.
could be wrong. In that I had some stuff to do this morning. So in case something happened like this morning, she's still very much employed
Sure.
at Fox. I watched her last night. So I think they're not changing. They still say things that the only thing they've done is now instead of saying mentioning a company, they're still pushing the big lie. They're
Mm,
still pushing things that could be considered slanderous. Now, the difference is if you slander or if you make up a story or say something you know is false about a public figure or an elected official, it's incredibly difficult for that person to win a defamation suit.
mm.
But if you go after a company, much easier, which is
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
Dominion got where they got. But so they can say almost whatever they want about Biden, Hillary Clinton, which they've been talking about Hillary Clinton a lot. That's
Yeah.
a sign that they're desperate. So this week, Hillary's been a big topic, which is laughable.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what they do. Is so if you go after someone who's basically the way the law works is if somebody is in the news a lot, it's very, very difficult to win a defamation suit
Mm.
because they can say, well, I mean, we saw this in the news, we saw this in the news, and there's ways to wiggle out of it. But if you're a
Yeah.
private citizen or a company, it's easier to win a defamation suit. So
And we have Smartmatic coming up very soon, so
yes.
hopefully they win that. My last question for you is, I mean, given what you know about Fox and how much you watch it, is there anything that the left wing media apparatus can do and learn to hook its audience, but also at the same time, of course, being rooted in truth and facts, unlike Fox?
That's a good question because I wouldn't want any media company to start pushing fear and paranoia.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
also think that only attracts a certain type of personality.
right.
I don't think the people who consume left-wing media necessarily would I don't know be attracted to the same type of tools that
Yeah,
Fox uses
yeah,
for its audience. I think the one thing I could say is I wish, and this is probably wishful thinking. I'm using the same words, but anyway, I wish that more people would just blatantly call Fox propaganda.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think what frustrates me is when I watch people on other media companies dance around. They don't really say. I mean, what was revealed in the Dominion lawsuit was absolutely devastating. It
yeah,
was,
yeah,
and this idea that they're just another voice or they're just another opinion. I would love it if we had an actual right wing media uh, company that didn't do all the tricks and misinformation, disinformation, and
mhm,
conspiracy theories that Fox pushes. I would love it if it was just straight down like we're just conservative and here's the news and
yeah,
not
yeah.
constantly manipulate their audience. But we don't have that, unfortunately.
There's a fascinating thing that Lawrence O'Donnell said yesterday night, and I don't know if you watched his segment, but he was saying that there's this thing that Daniel Patrick Moynihan used to say to him, which is semantic infiltration. And one of the things that Roger Ailes kind of knew and kind of wants his audience and those who even say Fox to say is they want them to say Fox News, so that it gives basically Fox a sense of legitimacy and credibility, that news word. And Lawrence is like, I'm not going to use Fox News. I'm just going to say Fox because they don't deserve to have that news word attached to it. And I also agree with you that I hope that, and I wish that more people would say that Fox is a propagandist kind of network, and that's kind of the truth. And it seems like everything that you've been watching and saying kind of supports that. And I'm grateful for you watching Fox. I'm grateful for you watching Fox that we don't have to. So thank you, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. That was a fascinating episode. Of course, like I said to Juliet earlier, I don't really watch Fox, and I never probably will watch Fox, but it is, I think, still fascinating to see kind of how they're able to use these really, I think, horrible tactics like fear mongering, like, doing the us versus them thing in order to control and gain an audience and also keep them hooked, kind of like a cult. And so it was fascinating to hear Juliet kind of walk through kind of Fox is able to do that. And, hopefully you follow her work. She is on Twitter at Decoding Fox News, and she does amazing work. Hopefully you can check her out. She deserves your follow because she does a lot of work kind of looking at that media ecosystem and that right-wing apparatus, and it's worth checking out. So thank you, Juliet, for joining. Hopefully you enjoyed that episode. Just a couple of things before I let you all go. I know I wasn't able to join you yesterday, but there's some spicy news happening out of Florida again. Yesterday, Disney announced that it will not be pursuing their $1 billion plan to build this new Disney campus in Florida. They cited basically concerns that, what's happening in the state is a wrong direction for the company. And they said in this statement, given the considerable changes that have occurred since the announcement of this project, including new leadership and changing business conditions, we have decided not to move forward with construction of the campus, which is, again, kind of begs to, I guess, everyone to wonder whether or not Ron DeSantis is really the pro-business candidate and person that he really is, and which it clearly isn't. He says he wants Florida to be the state of business, but at the same time, he's attacking places like Disney. And now he's driving businesses and workers out of Disney because of the things that he's saying about, LGBTQ plus rights, about, about that community. And it's just pissing off a lot of people, including big companies. And so now Florida has lost $1 billion in potential revenue. And I hope that every Florida now pays attention to that and realizes that Ron DeSantis really is not the person who he says he is. And he's also causing more harm for the state. And next week, he is planning to run for president. And I hope that every single person, not only in Florida, but also America, will wake up to the fact that this is who Ron DeSantis is. He just isn't a good governor, and he's driving business out of the state, and he's not the Republican that we think he is. And he's dangerous, he is destructive, and this is what would happen if he is the president. So we cannot afford a possible Ron DeSantis presidency. One other thing that I saw was interesting that I think is worth highlighting is a new poll that found 61% of young people now approve of Joe Biden's job as president, which is more than any other age demographic in America. You also see young voters approving Joe Biden by over Trump by 21 points and Biden over DeSantis by 22 points. And both of those numbers are also the largest margin of any generation. And I think it's fascinating because last week, Voters of Tomorrow did a poll that found about 53% of young voters support President Biden's job performance. That was before E. Jean Carroll. That was before the CNN town hall. And it seems like now the youth support is only rising. And of course, polls only capture kind of one slice of electorate, only tell a very specific story. And so we can't kind of fall too back into polls. But I think it also is worth kind of highlighting that because the support is only increasing. And what you're also seeing right now is Vice President Kamala Harris getting more support too. So, I think both people on the ticket are kind of really getting Gen Zers enthusiasm. And I think it's also worth mentioning. I mean, the issues that young people care about are also pretty much aligned with what it was 6 months ago when Roe was overturned, or about a year ago when Roe was overturned. You see young people supporting the right to abortion at about 33%, 35%, which is the same as when it was overturned. And you're also seeing kind of historic levels of support on gun violence reform, on climate change, on all these different issues that Democrats and President Biden have been delivering. And so I think it's only pretty good news for what President Biden wants and what I think Democrats want. But like I said, we still have to keep fighting. We still have to keep mobilizing this generation. That starts by first, as I've said on this show, peer-to-peer conversations, having those quality conversations with young people, and then also just doing everything you can to educate, amplify resources. When you look at kind of the places where Gen Zers turn out the most, it happened to be the places where they had the most resources, they had the most educational reminders about where the polling locations were, about how to register to vote. And I think that's key going forward. So we've got some exciting polling, I know, coming up soon. And this one is just the latest installment. So thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of On the Move. We'll be back next week for more episodes, and we've got some exciting guests in store for you. Again, it's 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on youtube.com/Politicon. We'll be here starting Monday and throughout Friday, so tune in. Thank you all for watching this week, and I will see you all next week.